All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is really a terrific turnout for what's turning into a really nice summer afternoon, so I really appreciate your being here and your participation. So my name is Chris Roche, and I'm director of the Purdue Institute for Integrative Neuroscience, and I want to welcome you to this initial stab at a Life Sciences Engineering Workshop series. And I can see the dates and my contact information for this series, and I'll keep my introductory comments really brief because we have an exciting program and I'd like to make sure that we leave plenty of time for discussion. But I thought it'd be worthwhile to just go over why we're here and sort of some guidelines for just to guide the discussion for where we'd like to go. So some of this you've already presumably seen in the announcement, but there are really two main goals here. First, we'd like to use this opportunity to identify major problems in neuroscience where we think that these problems are really well matched with the opportunity to bring people together with strengths in life sciences and engineering here on campus. And we'd like to then use the discussion around these major problems to eventually create teams of Purdue faculty members who could then try to solve these problems. There are a number of motivations here. So one of the first ones I would mention is really what we thought about since the pillar competition led to the creation of the Institute, and that is that it was always understood that Purdue does not have a medical school, but we have traditional and well-recognized strengths in engineering, and it seems that if we're going to raise the profile and visibility of neuroscience at Purdue, one obvious way to do this would be to make sure that we're capitalizing on opportunities for neuroscientists to work with engineering experts. So this is somewhat historical. And then related to this, I think it's pretty clear that all of us on campus working in this area can be more successful if we put together unique types of collaborations, if we have unique angles with respect to innovation, the innovation part of what we need to do to convince NIH reviewers and therefore become more competitive for extramural funding. And then the third one here, which is really very relevant to what we're doing here, is internal funding. Okay? And those dollar signs don't necessarily represent all the zeros that would come with the internal funding. But I did want to mention, sort of as a way to offer some calibration, rough calibration, that we have considerable funds to spend, and we really would like to do this in short order and strategically. Okay? So that's why we're really trying to move ahead with this type of workshop, and we'll be thinking of others based on what we learn from what we've done here. So we've all seen in April and early May the Big Idea Challenge organized by Discovery Park, and so you can kind of think of something similar in terms of the size of teams. They don't necessarily have to be 40-member faculty member teams, but fairly large teams tackling large problems. So think about the scope of problem, and the funds are similar. So those were 2 years, $150,000 each, just again as a way of calibrating. In the end, I think what we want to see is some big idea types of projects where there's a justification for funding, and we'll try to make the funding work around those without any strict guidelines at the moment. All right, so the format for today then, we thought it would be a good way to start with some introductory presentations where we could showcase some technologies and some existing collaborations that have really shown themselves to be successful, and then follow the presentations with roundtable discussions. And the goal here should be, I think you could think of it in two parts. What are major problems in a field that you're interested in? And in particular, which problems do you think could be best solved with engineering expertise, thinking specifically about engineering expertise where we can claim unique strengths already at Purdue. So try to put those two together. And then at the end, we thought we would reconvene very briefly to have a representative from each particular group just give a summary for the rest of the overall group of what was accomplished during the discussion. And the hope is that we would at least identify the major problems at this session and then start to form teams around those problems and at least lay out a framework of a research plan at the next session, identify at that next session what other expertise might be needed, and then at the third session bring in that additional missing expertise in some cases and refine the research plan so that we're close to being able to have the teams put something together that could then be examined by the PIIN leadership team for internal funding. At the end of today, as well as for each of the workshops, we'd love to have additional time. We have 2 hours that we've mentioned as the official time, but we certainly have the room for later and could stay for another hour or so for networking and refreshments.